Welcome back to Capital Report. I am Tom Dutch again. Our after-hours segment, we're going to kind of finish up where we left off in the broadcast segment and talk with Sam Tracy, who heads the Connecticut Coalition to regulate marijuana. Sam, a lot of stuff going on. Your pal Sessions, come on. So how does that affect everything here in Connecticut, across the nation, in California, where they're lining up to buy legalized marijuana?
Yeah, I
Welcome.
think that, oh, thank you very much, and thanks for having me on today. And it is definitely concerning what we're seeing from Attorney General Sessions. The Cole memo was tremendously important for letting the marijuana industry become what it is today. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to affect things in Connecticut. We have momentum on our side. Massachusetts is starting sales in July. 71% of Connecticut residents are in support of this issue. So I think no matter what the federal government's doing, it's always been illegal at the federal level. Our medical marijuana program is in clear violation of federal law, so I don't think that that actually does anything to stop our progress in the state.
Wouldn't you think it would have, based on some of the revenue estimates, wouldn't you think they would have sailed through last session given the hole that we're in?
I sure hope it, I wish it had, but unfortunately just with the budget crisis being at the top of everyone's minds, I feel like a lot of these other issues that might have been more controversial to folks in the legislature, they kind of got kicked back, and we weren't able to spend enough time on them. So I think that finally this year, we still have that budget crisis looming. I mean, I think it's $4 billion the deficit that we're dealing with, so we still do need the money.
And John McKinney leading the way is a Republican, Melissa Geberon from my district, East Haddam, leading the charge for this, a Republican.
Sure, this isn't an
not
issue.
a Josh Elliott Democrat.
No, this isn't a litmus test issue, quite frankly. But you know,
take a shot every time you say that now.
This isn't a Josh Elliott test issue. But at risk of being the skunk in the garden party here, it's a terrible idea, and I think you know, to pass it because we need money is bad policy, and we have a huge opioid problem in this state and in this country. Thousands of people are dying because of drug addiction. And I think a lot of legislators have real doubts as to whether legalizing another drug helps or hurts that problem. So let me just finish a quick point. You know, and I think it's personal for different legislators. I come from a family where family members and very close loved ones have been in addiction, you know, programs and issues. And I've never met anyone who's gone through an addiction program who thinks legalizing marijuana is a good idea.
Can I just respond to that one point? Because I saw a report last month that I thought was really surprising. I don't know how much attention, I'm sure Sam saw it as well. In states that have legalized pot, whether for medical use or recreational use, opioid abuse is down in every single one of those states, which I thought was interesting. There's got to be some sort of a correlation there.
Yeah, I mean, fatalities, the number is that it's an average of 25% drop in opioid fatalities in states that have medical marijuana and access to legal marijuana. And part of the reason for that is just they're both things that are often used for treating chronic pain. And so marijuana, I'll never say it's harmless. It is a drug, and there are harms associated with it, but it is significantly less addictive than opiates, and there's zero chance of having a fatal overdose, which is a huge risk with opiates.
But part of the problem is, and I just had a daughter who had her wisdom teeth pulled out, and you know, she was given a month, you know, worth of opioids, of narcotics. She didn't take any, but you have 3 or 4 days of those, you could easily be addicted. So yes, you could.
Those are separate issues. I don't disagree, but those are separate issues.
But the issue is, the issue isn't give them marijuana, it's safer. The issue is let's do a better job of our physicians of meting out what the appropriate pain medication is instead of just handing out these narcotics like they're
Jody,
candy.
I can see marijuana cafes on top of that busway there, right? Take the busway in and bring in big grow houses and...
Well, there's regulation that can happen, correct? So in Connecticut, we passed a law that physicians can do these digital prescriptions so that there aren't scripts just running out the door. You have to be able to limit. Your daughter shouldn't get a month's supply. You should get what you need if you even want to take it for whatever that ailment was. If you can regulate it, there might not be, as in opioids, these laced pills that are going around, which definitely send people into a death spiral. So I think that there's definitely some things that can be molded to make it safer for folks, because I think that people have agreed that it is a recreational thing. It's there for medical. It's only a matter of time, but let's just do it the appropriate
Sam,
way.
So Sam, break down the New England regional marijuana. Okay, Vermont has it right now, legally.
So just yesterday, the Vermont House of Representatives voted to legalize marijuana. and the Senate already has, and next week they're going to be finalizing that. The governor, who's a Republican, said that he's going to be signing it, and they're
So
going to be
how soon? How soon you figure?
next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
And
So, there
we're-
it's only it's non-commercial, so
Okay.
it is just home growing and possession. So it's kind of like what we have in D.C. right now.
Okay, so Massachusetts starts July when?
Yeah, sales are slated to begin in July, and so Connecticut residents, you just have to be 21. You don't have to have a Massachusetts ID, so any Connecticut resident is going to be able to drive up to Massachusetts and make these purchases. And so
how about Gina Raimondo in Rhode Island? Where are they?
They're a little further. They've been talking about it for years, kind of like Connecticut. Hopefully they will pass it soon, but so far they haven't passed a bill. Hopefully this will be their year like it will be ours. And then also, kind of forgotten sometimes, but still New England, Maine also has legalized marijuana in 2016. Their program is still getting up and running as far as the regulations go, but it is legal to possess and grow there as well.
So make the argument for Massachusetts to be legal, right? Over the border in Springfield, the same people who didn't want people going over there for liquor, for package stores.
casinos.
Or casino, right? So make that argument to a legislator to say, not in Connecticut, but drive up there and get it.
So the simple reality is that whether they're purchasing it from legal stores in Massachusetts or they're purchasing it from the black market, people are already using marijuana in Connecticut. 1 in 7 Connecticut residents uses marijuana every year. That's federal data. And so I think that we should try to have harm reduction. And if people are going to be using marijuana, just like if people are going to be using alcohol, I'd prefer that it's regulated, that it's tested, and that it can be taxed so that those tax funds can then go to treatment and prevention. And
So in July, let me clarify one thing. So in July, I'll be able to go to Massachusetts, right over
He
the
really
border.
wants to get this straight.
Right over the border,
bring your ID,
right
if
over the
you're over
border in
21.
Enfield, get probably not as much as I want.
Right.
Then bring it home to
limits.
Connecticut.
You're in so
call
much
all my-
trouble when
call
you go
all my
home.
Capital Report gang
Watch the
to
show
my
in
house,
July.
to my house, and have at it, right?
Physically you could.
Yes.
Legally you're not allowed to bring it back
Right.
over the border, but the fact of the matter is that's very difficult to enforce.
Oh,
and
sure,
so
right.
if there are legal access
Right.
points very close by, it does make sense that we should be regulated in Connecticut so that we can have our own regulations, the tax money can go to Hartford, and we can actually be creating jobs for Connecticut residents.
Can I make
20,000
just
jobs.
one
Go
point
ahead.
about the legislative path? A few of us here, especially John, obviously, have spent time in the legislature over the past years, and it seems that every major public policy shift, which this would obviously be, follows a certain arc. The first year, you have a committee debate. The second year, you try to get it out of committee. The third year, you try to get it to the floor. And so it seems like this is following that same type of path, which means it's inevitable, whether it's this year or next year.
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, last year, even though we obviously didn't pass a bill, we did get the furthest we ever had. We had 2 committee hearings. We never had any before. And so both of those went very well. A vast majority of the public testimony was in favor. And hopefully this year we'll be getting that out of committee, maybe hopefully beating those projections and passing a law. But I do think that it is inevitable, but the speed at which we do it is
Jen,
no guarantee.
Jen gets the last word here.
I was actually at one of the hearings where people were testifying, and one of the people that was against it actually questioned the projections that people had made for what tax revenue would be generated, because the projections were kind of going off of Colorado, which was the first. So they think once it's become legal other places that the estimates are actually going to be a lot lower than what we're projecting. And so what do you think about these projections? Do you think that, like, what are you expecting given that other states have already done this?
Yeah, so the best projections I've seen is that we'd be raising, once the program is fully up and running, it of course will take a few years for stores to open and get their licenses, but once things are up and running, we'd have about $180 to $200 million in annual tax revenue. And so that's not going to solve the budget crisis by itself, but it is a pretty significant number. It's about 10% of the current deficit that we're looking at. And again, this is a revenue source that supported more than tolls, more than a new casino. The Sacred Heart University poll last year found 71% of residents in support. So it's really just the legislature that has to catch up to them.
All right, well, we'll see. Legislative session starts in February. Stay tuned on this one. Thanks to Sam Tracy for the Connecticut Coalition to regulate marijuana. See you guys next week.